to order the meeting of the regular City Council meeting for Monday, June 1st, 2020. The Governor of Iowa has declared a public emergency because of the COVID-19 outbreak. The mayor has determined that an in-person meeting of the City Council is impossible or impractical without violating the governor's mandates. When an in-person meeting is impossible or impractical, Iowa Code Section 21.8 permits a governmental body to conduct a meeting by electronic means. The meeting will be conducted by video conference using Zoom from the council chambers. The mayor and necessary city staff will be in the council chambers. This evening, I'm joined by City Clerk Carla Geyer and City Attorney William Berger. The 7 council members will not be in the council chambers, but will participate via Zoom conferencing. Comments for items that are on the agenda may be made by submitting them prior to the meeting to the city clerk, mayor, or any of the council members, or by calling 319-596-0179 during the meeting. The video audio conference of the meeting will be broadcast on the normal public access channels. We will strive to maintain the quality of the video and audio during the broadcast. Public access is available through this broadcast. Meeting minutes will still be kept and will include a statement of explaining why an in-person meeting was impossible or impractical. Carla, roll call, please.
There we go. Okay, Beaufore.
Here.
Birgen.
Here I am.
Drenkow.
Here.
Glaser. He was on there. There he is.
Sam.
Kangas. He's muted, Sam. Rathe.
Here.
Schneider. He's muted too.
It said the host was not allowing mute. I'm here, and it didn't say the host was not.
Okay, we got you.
Thank you. We'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item D is approval of the agenda as presented. Seek a motion.
I will move approval of the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Birgen, second by Drenkow. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Item E is the approval of the minutes. Approve the May 18th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. Seek a motion.
I'll move approval of the May 18, 2020 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion by Drenkow, second by Birgen. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Item F is guest councilperson. I believe this month was on behalf of Ward 3, Councilman Rod Drenkow.
If Tasha can unmute herself, I will let her do her own introductions. I will say that she is currently a member of the Leisure Services Commission and was on the Golf Course Commission also, I believe.
Apparently she can't unmute herself.
Okay. Hold up a big sign.
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
All right.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Rod, for having me as a City Council guest person for the month of June. Very excited to be here tonight. I am indeed on the Rec and Leisure Service Committee. I'm also on the Tourism Committee with the Waverly Commerce and Chamber. And I currently serve at the Excel group. That's where I'm currently employed at. I'm an executive assistant and recently added additional roles for in the Human Resources Department as employment engagement director. I don't know the correct term yet, it's still in the works. So working on that. And so I'm super happy to be here. I'm year 2 in Waverly. I am a Wartburg alum, graduated in 2007, and I got my master's at UNI in 2009. So again, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And as you're probably fully aware, you're more than welcome to engage in conversation. Just don't have a vote. Sorry.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Moving forward with the consent calendar, item G on the agenda. The following items will be acted upon by voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion unless someone from the council or public requests that a specific item be considered separately. Item 1, set the public hearing date for July 6, 2020 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of City Hall to review the Business 218 North. Okay. Item 2, approve the purchase of replacement ultraviolet UV disinfection equipment from MC2 Incorporated of Des Moines, Iowa for the quoted price of $11,682.85 plus shipping. Item 3 is a pay request from Schrader Excavating and Grading Company for the Waverly Municipal Airport Obstruction Removal Project 2020 for the amount of $8,082.12. Item 4, pay request from Farnsworth Group for the Public Services Center North Edition 2021 for the amount of $25,136.50. Item 5 is pay request from WHKS and Company for the WPC Facility Improvements 2020 for the amount of $25,160.32. Item 6 is a pay request from Construction Materials Testing for the Airport Runway 29 Extension 2018 for the amount of $1,316.50. Item 7, pay request from McClure Engineering Company for the Airport Runway 29 Extension 2018 for the amount of $6,978.16. Item 8 is a pay request from McClure Engineering for the Airport Obstruction Removal Project 2020 for the amount of $4,250. Item 9 is a pay request from Schneider and Associates for the Traffic Study 2020 for the amount of $23,884.64. Item 10 is a pay request from Hall & Hall Engineers Incorporated for the Youth Ball Fields 2019 for the amount of $20,487.97. Item 11 is a pay request from Feldman Concrete for the Downtown Alley Reconstruction 2020 for the amount of $21,375. Item 12 is a Class E liquor license for Casey's General Store number 1649. Item 13 is a Class C beer permit for Quick Start number 286. Item 14 is the cigarette, tobacco, nicotine vapor permit for Casey's General Stores number 1649 and number 3763, Prairie Links Golf and Event Center, Fairway Stores number 561, Walgreens, Hy-Vee, Walmart, Quick Stars number 286, number 707, number 752, and the Liquor and Tobacco Outlet. Seek a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar as read by the mayor.
Second.
Motion by Schneider, second by Drenkow. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Take just a moment here. Bear with me. What issue are we having, do you think? Okay. Would it be a good suggestion, because I'm not, like I usually will mute and unmute as roll calls are read and stuff. Would it be okay if everybody can behave, you know, at least the council stay unmuted? Otherwise, we won't be able to catch voice votes and it'll be a nightmare. So if all of the council members will unmute and then just stay unmuted, and We may have a little bit of background noise, possibly. We'll see how it works. So go ahead, and if you on your end will need to unmute. Brian says he can't. Okay, got Brian.
So my only concern is that I'm in a public library and there's a lot of background noise here. So I don't want my background noise coming through. That's my only concern. So,
okay.
But I can stay on if it's not a distraction for other people.
We're willing to give anything a try here.
Okay.
Hopefully we're nearing the possible end of this. No offense, Tasha, for helping us with all of this. All right, I'm going to move on as we get things going here. That's okay. We won't need it until we get into discussion. I'm just going to get through.
Point of order here. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I wasn't able to unmute on that, and I am now. If myself or multiple people stay unmuted, we're going to get a feedback loop of sound, and it's going to be very unlistenable.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I'm just trying to see what happens. Otherwise, trying to get everybody to unmute with these roll call votes is going to probably be a nightmare.
Did something change with the settings? Because it used to be that individuals have the ability to mute and unmute themselves.
Right.
Okay.
Hey, Tasha,
Yeah.
can I ask you why I can't keep everybody unmuted so they can unmute themselves?
So I believe you have the ability to unmute all as the host. So if you go to participants,
Right. It just says mute all.
there's not an unmute all. It could be in
No.
your original setting. If you go to like your home Zoom page, you could probably update that, I think. Otherwise, yeah, I think it best if everyone could just mute, and then you can either click the task or space bar or obviously the mute button, but.
But as the host, he has to give the participants the ability to unmute themselves. And that's somewhere in the settings for the
Right.
setup for the meeting.
Yeah, I'm trying to see here.
And see, I haven't used this in about 4 or 5 times. Other people have used it, so I don't know if they changed the settings, and I'm not sure what.
Okay, so if you go to, if you go to the bottom of your Zoom with the Zoom logo and go to the bottom, and there's another Zoom opening like your homepage, there's a little clock for settings on the upper right. And you should be able to click that and go into different settings. So there's, trying to think, because I'm not the host, so I don't know if mine is different than yours, honestly.
Yeah, the host has a different view, so you won't be able to see the options that he has.
Right,
There's a place where he's able to go in and manage participants.
right. Yeah, do you see that anywhere to manage participants?
Not under the manage, because it doesn't really show.
So yeah, I think it's under participants. I don't know if you have to do a kind of a right click, but when you click on it, one of the things is there's a list of things that you can do. So for example, I know when I'm teaching, I have to give my students the ability to share screen. That's one of the lists in there. But I think in there is also the ability to mute and unmute yourself.
Yeah, we're not finding it right here. What's that?
Because I had that option at first that I was controlled by mute, but now I'm able to mute and unmute freely. So I'm not sure if that's the case for everyone now, or if it's
I'm
still.
going to try to mute and then unmute myself and see how it goes.
I think that's what's happening is that, yep, when you mute again, then I have to unlock, I have to let you in again, because I've been doing it all the time, clicking around.
There, they should be able to
There you
unmute
go.
themselves now.
That worked.
Did that work?
Yes.
You should be able to.
Okay, now we can unmute ourselves.
All right, we finally got it, sorry.
Hey, there we go. All right.
I knew I invited you, Tasha, for some reason, so that was.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yes.
I really thank you for that.
I've been on a meeting with Rec and Leisure Services, and we had quite a struggle for some time. So it's all good.
We're going to change your slide. Okay. All right. Item H under regular business, number 1, resolution 20-87, a resolution directing the sale of $5,270,000 subject to adjustment per terms of offering. General obligation GO bonds series 2020A. Seek a motion.
I'll move approval of resolution 20-87 as stated by the mayor.
Second.
Motion by Rathe, second by Birgen. I'm going to hold council discussion and turn this over to James and Maggie.
Yes, sir, Mayor. Maggie Berger's here from Spear Financial. John Murphy is also on the line. Maggie's live on camera. If she's able to unmute, she can certainly run us through. Good for you, Maggie. And kind of walk us through our sale this morning. It was a very good day to be in the market. That's what I'll lead her in with.
Thank you very much, James. Thanks, everybody. And again, John Murphy is on the line with us. So today we accepted bids on $5,270,000 of general obligation bond series 2020A. We did receive 6 bids, and this letter has been put into your packets. It was an addition probably around 2 p.m. Today. And you will see that we are recommending on these 2020A bonds that we would sell to UMB Bank of Kansas City, Missouri at a true interest rate of 1.1144%. They are also going to give you just over $200,000 and some in a premium. We will get to the interest rates in a little bit, but I do want to note that last year your interest rate on your 2019 bonds was 2.11%. Had you told me last year that interest rates would be this low and we'd be down a whole percent, I would have definitely not believed it. So the city did participate in a Moody's investor rating call, and we've included that packet in here as well. You did maintain your AA3 rating. There was some discussion, and Mr. Bronner can fill you in on that, about the Waverly health system and the current pandemic and how that may affect. But overall, the call and all the action went very well. You are still very holding on to that AA3 in a very strong position. Talks about things that could lead to a decline. We always say our operating reserves going away or liquidity ability going away. But we do mention in here that operating cash and investments total $3.8 million for fiscal year 19, or 31% of operating revenues, which is a really great number that they were very happy with. So that does go on for a few pages in the packet, and then we do get to the interest rates themselves. Every bidder that bid today bid a 2% on these general obligation tax exempt bonds all the way down. They were only separated by the amount of premium that they were willing to give you. Also, bidding was very tight with only 13 basis points difference between the low bid of 1.11 and the high bid of 1.24. We have included your debt service schedule, and as always, we've protected the city with a call feature after 6/1 of 2026, meaning that at that time you would be able to call the bonds in whole or part, or if interest rates were lower than 2%, you would have an opportunity to refinance those. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have, but we would recommend this low interest rate on the 2020As for UMB Bank at 1.1144%.
Given that this is such a low interest rate, do we want to look at some of the bonds from, say, 6 years ago and look into the options of refinancing any of those?
Right. So we have looked at some of those. I believe you don't have any that are callable at this point in time. And so we continue to monitor that. I could also tell you that currently the federal government doesn't allow what's called advance refundings. And I know that your city did some advance refundings in the past when they were allowed as part of the 2016 Tax Act. They did, or the 2017, Tax Act, they were disallowed. but there is a rumor going around Washington that advance refundings may end up back in any further stimulus packages that may come down the pipe. So if that is the case, we definitely will look at what you have outstanding and see if there is an opportunity there to refinance. Great question, though.
An advance refunding would allow you to refund a bond that's within, is it a year or 2 years, Maggie, that is close to callable, but not quite yet. You put your money to escrow and then be able to actually knock it out with lower rate funds.
Right. And so really it can go out as far as 3 and 4 years, but there's some arbitrage situations that usually arise the further out that you go. So usually that 1 to 2 year is what's working best.
Yeah, arbitrage is bad. You don't want that.
Any other comments, questions, concerns?
I just wanted to check with Bill if we have to put the who we're borrowing from in the motion, or is that just coming in?
We can certainly insert that. It's not going to hurt to do that. I guess with that, rewriting the motion, go back to Councilwoman Rathe and ask if that amendment would be appropriate for hers and if Mr. Birgen stands behind that amendment.
Yes, I think that's fine.
So we'll drop the name of the bank in there and the whatever you feel, James, Carla, Bill.
No, I think it's appropriate. And I think in the past, we may have even included that we are selling those bonds to such a bank at such a rate.
Right.
So I think it's completely appropriate to include that as part of the resolution.
That's why I was asking.
Yeah, so I think just adding supplement to the end there to X bank at X rate would be sufficient. Do you feel, Carla? So if that stands again, reconfirming that amendment, Ann and Brian.
Yep, it's fine.
I confirm.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion on the matter. Yes,
Mr. Mayor, I just had one quick question. It's not going to change my vote or anything, but I just noticed here on the Moody's packet, in the packet here on page 2, enterprise risk from hospital ownership. And I guess I was on the understanding that the hospital ownership and bonding didn't affect anything. I guess, am I misinterpreting that, or?
Not at all. The bonds a hospital issue are not related to the city in the sense that we have any obligation or liability to it. The share ownership of the hospital by the city has been seen by Moody's and others as a negative outlook or something because of the pandemic and the possible funding shortfalls that are occurring as a potential issue that could be looked at. It's always been there, but it really wasn't discussed until the $36 million in debt came out this year. And that's what raised the red flag to maybe consider again. But in spite of that debt and the amount of debt that we carry, we were still able to maintain a AA3 rating. There was a split vote. We're very conscious of that. But the fact that it was the debt issue, it is what really raised that flag this year versus the hospital ownership in itself. But while the city has the ability to own, change the operating rules, the amount of authority the hospital has, and ultimately also has the ability to sell it if they wanted to with a proper procedure. That is the reason for the listing, because nationwide there are a variety of amounts of ownership in different hospitals, from complete ownership to zero ownership. We're in that middle ground leaning towards almost zero ownership, but we still technically do. So that is the reason for the emphasis on the Moody's report.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarification on that distinction.
You're welcome, sir.
James, one question. So you said that it was a split vote on the A3 rating.
Correct.
Where is that stated in the report?
It's not. That was part of our call with Moody's when he discussed it in the committee. They just print the end result. And so I don't know how big the committee is. We've never really asked that. It could be a 20-member committee and it was 16-4, 20-0, 19-1. You never know the actual vote, just the end result. And for me, that's all I care about. I'll take that AA3 for another year and be glad to have it.
But I just want to make sure that I wasn't missing something in the report that was relevant.
Nope.
Thank
Nope, you were not. They don't really note the actual vote of the committee nor the members of, et cetera.
All right, move forward with roll call vote. Carla.
Schneider,
Yes.
Rathe,
Yes.
Kangas,
Yes.
Glaser,
Yes.
Drenkow,
Yes.
Birgen,
Yes.
Beaufore,
Yes.
On a vote of 7-0 absent, resolution 20-87 is approved. Moving on to item number 2, resolution 20-88, a resolution directing the sale of $700,000 in taxable general obligation bond series 2020B. Seek a motion.
I will move approval of resolution 20-88, a resolution directing the sale of $700,000 taxable general obligation bond series 2020B.
Second.
Motion and second.
Friendly amendment to Bankers Bank, Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I was going to offer that. I was going to just follow suit of what we did the last time. Let Maggie introduce the bid system and explain it, but thank you, sir.
Well, thank you again. So we did have a taxable series this year. It's been a couple of years. Usually if there's taxability, there's some private purpose. There's possibly, something going on that is more of an operational type nature. And so this year it was $700,000 that was deemed by your bond counsel that needed to be taxable. As you can see, we did have 6 bids on this, some of the same people, and we are recommending that Bankers Bank of Madison, Wisconsin would receive this at 1.5342%. We really see that taxable market coming in at anywhere between about 50 to 75 basis points on a pretty regular basis between the tax exempt and the taxable. So even though interest rates are very low, we are still seeing that definite divide between tax exempt and taxable. Unlike the Series 2020A, they are not going to be paying you a premium. They are going to be taking $3,500 out of the deal. Now, we did offer them more than the $3,500. We offered them 8/10 of the amount of $700,000 that they could have taken, but they did choose to only take the 5/10 of or 0.5% out of the deal. If you flip in your packet to page 2, you will see that Bankers Bank, their interest rates range from a 0.7 at the beginning to a 1.75 at the very end maturity in 2030. You will pay true interest cost if you hold this to maturity of $59,818. The rest of the rates really did start a little bit higher than that 0.7, and that's really what got Bankers Bank into the winning position at the end of the day. Just like your other packet, we did include a debt service schedule, and these bonds, because they're on the same maturity length, will also be callable on June 1st of 2026, which at that time the interest rate is only 1.25 and 1.5 down to a 1.75. So again, at that time you could call those in whole or part, pay them off, just keep paying them or refinance them. I'd answer any questions that you have on this, but these taxable issue, we do recommend you would sell the 2020Bs to Bankers Bank of Madison, Wisconsin at a 1.5342%.
Anything from city staff?
No, sir. Other than I guess I'll offer that this is of course, the Ball Diamond project, and the reason it was taxable is because they could be revenue generated from naming rights, et cetera, which has an intangible value for advertising for some of the companies that may choose to do so. And when that is involved, a lot of times it is best off to just do a taxable sale instead, and eliminates a lot of the liability issues that may come with that. So that was the reasoning behind doing it taxable.
Thanks for bringing that up, James. So just a quick question. Is really the only variance then on that, the 0.5 point in interest that we're looking at when we do
Yes,
that?
sir. Yes, sir, it is. Otherwise, it's just the same as the other bond, slightly higher, and thankfully a much less amount.
Great. Thanks.
Any other discussion other than amending?
So I would amend my motion to, Resolution 2088, a resolution directing the sale of 70. So it would not be 700,000. It would be $696,500.
It actually is 700,000.
Oh, I would still use that in the motion. Okay. Okay. So directing the sale of $700,000 taxable general obligation bonds, Series 2020B, to Bankers Bank, Madison, Wisconsin, at a true interest rate of 1.5342%.
Rod used to.
I think I seconded that, so I'll go ahead and my second with the amendment.
Thank you. Any other discussion now that we have an amendment? Hearing none, roll call. Carla.
Rathe,
Yes.
Kangas,
Yes.
Glaser,
Yes.
Drenkow,
Yes.
Birgen,
Yes.
Beaufore,
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Vote of 7-0, resolution 20-88 is approved. I want to take just a moment and thank John and Maggie for joining us this evening. Over my experience of following council meetings and being in the chamber here and hearing these presentations, and early on they didn't make much sense to me, but they certainly have over the past few years. I appreciate your diligence in reporting to us.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much for having us, and we'll get out of your way tonight. Thanks.
Oh, that's okay. Stick around. It's entertaining. All right. Item number 3, review of the Waverly Utilities 2019 audit. Mr. Wenzel, I believe, joins us.
I'm actually going to take the lead here.
Oh, hi, Casey.
Hello. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, staff, and any audience that's listening. For those that don't know me, I'm Casey Lewis, the Director of Finance and Customer Services at Waverly Utilities. Tonight, I'd like to talk about the 2019 financial audit that was completed by Ide Bailey from Dubuque. I believe that you have all received a copy of our audit with the agenda for today. For 2019, we received an unmodified opinion, which is the best you can receive, as well as no material weaknesses or internal control deficiencies. The first section of the 2019 financial statements for Waverly Utilities is the independent auditor's report. This section outlines the auditor's responsibility and their opinion as previously mentioned. The next section in the financial statements is the management's discussion and analysis. In this section, we provide a 3-year comparison of the financials for Waverly Utilities, including a comparison of budget versus actual, fund balances, capital assets, and debt activity. The following section is our actual financial statements. Our operating revenues for the electric utility were down $824,000 in 2019 compared to 2018, while expenses were down $1.2 million in 2019 compared to 2018. A large driver of the decrease in expenses was due to an accounting change related to the recording of energy efficiency rebates in 2018. In the past, we amortized this expense, and we are now expensing as incurred. Kilowatt hour sales were also down $5.4 million in 2019 compared to 2018, which in turn reduced our production costs. We ended the year with an increase of $488,000 to our net position after the transfer of cash to the City of Waverly. In 2019, there was an increase in our cash balance of $300,000 due to capital spending being less than depreciation, which is a non-cash item. The fourth section of the financial statements is footnotes. These footnotes provide explanations of balance sheet related items, including assets, debt, and pensions. The footnotes are followed by required supplemental information that is mainly related to pensions, as well as other supplemental information that provides utility trends. The final section of the financial statement is Ide Bailey's response to the government auditing standards. There were no instances of non-compliance or other materials that were required to be reported. According to Iowa Code 38810, a municipal telecommunications utility must have separate books from the electric utility. We do keep separate books for the telecom and electric utility, which you will see throughout our financial statements. Our auditors found no issues with the allocation of expenses between the telecom and electric utility. Due to the competitive environment surrounding the Waverly Communications utility, we aren't able to share a lot of information tonight, according to Iowa Code Chapter 22.7, Paragraph 6. We want to thank the community for their participation and support. We are currently at a 63% market share and adding new subscribers every month. As agents of the city, I encourage you to visit Waverly Utilities and discuss the Waverly Communications Utility 2019 financial statements with Daryl, Jeff, and I. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Casey. Any questions from the council? All right. Hearing none, I think we'll move on. Thank you for your time, Casey, Daryl. I think that's Jeff as well, right?
Yep.
Okay. Kurt.
I did see we had Kurt on the call, and rather than me mess this up in council comments, I was just wondering where, or actually, I guess hookup for service would be Kurt, but I'm wondering with COVID if we're backed up and where we see us kind of getting caught up there, or anything the public would need to know on that.
You talking about telecom, Matt?
Yes, on telecom. I'm sorry, Kurt.
And that'd be Jeff then.
Whoever.
I think Casey and I could respond to that. Hopefully you're hearing me okay.
Yep.
But yeah, when we suspended service activations for a little over a month, I believe it was, we did see a backup. We started activating several weeks ago, and we're trying to plow through the list of customers waiting for service. We're making some good progress, but there is a little bit of a backlog right now.
All right, thank you.
You bet.
All right. Thank you. We will move on to item number 4. Under regular business, resolution 20-89, a resolution approving change order number 2, accepting the sanitary sewer lining by CIP Pipeliner 2020 project is complete, approving pay request number 2, and approving pay request number 3 as the final pay request.
I'll move approval of resolution 20-89, approving change order number 2 in the amount of a $400 decrease, accepting the sanitary sewer lining by CIP Pipeliner 2020 project as complete, approving pay request number 2 in the amount of $23,365.25, and approving pay request number 3 in the amount of $3,734.75 as the final pay request to Municipal Pipe Tool of Hudson, Iowa.
Second.
Motion by Drenkow, second by Beaufore. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, Carla.
Kangas.
Yes.
Glaser.
Yes.
Drenkow.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Vote of 7-0, absent. Resolution 20-89 is approved. Item 5, resolution 20-90, a resolution authorizing dedication of right-of-way parcels for the 4th Street Southwest Reconstruction project.
I'll move to approve resolution 20-90, authorizing dedication of right-of-way parcels for the 4th Street Southwest Reconstruction project.
Second.
Motion by Glaser, second by Birgen. Council discussion. Hearing none, roll call, Carla.
Glaser.
Yes.
Drenkow.
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
Beaufore.
Yes.
Schneider.
Yes.
Rathe.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
On a vote of 7 to 0, 0 absent, Resolution 20-90 is approved. Item number 6 is second reading of Ordinance 1073, an ordinance providing for rezoning of a portion of 6th Street Northwest from north right-of-way line of 6th Avenue Northwest to the south right-of-way line of the Cedar River Railroad Company from a city-owned street to M1 Light Industrial.
I'll move approval, second reading of ordinance 1073, an ordinance providing for rezoning of a portion of 6th Street Northwest from north right-of-way line of 6th Avenue Northwest to the south right-of-way line of the Cedar River Railroad Company from a city-owned street to M1 Light Industrial.
Second.
Motion by Schneider, second by Birgen. Council discussion. Hearing none, roll call, Carla.
Drenkow,
Yes.
Birgen,
Yes.
Beaufore,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Rathe,
Yes.
Kangas,
Yes.
Glaser.
Yes.
Vote of 7 to 0 with 0 absent. Ordinance 1073, second reading is approved. Item 6A attaches to the last. Approve to suspend the rules and move directly to the third and final reading.
I would move to approve to suspend the rules and move directly to the third and final reading.
Second.
Motion by Kangas, second by Rathe. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Item 6B, third and final reading of Ordinance 1073, an ordinance providing for rezoning of a portion of 6th Street Northwest from north right-of-way line of 6th Avenue Northwest to the south right-of-way line of the Cedar River Railroad Company from a city-owned street to M1 Light Industrial.
I'll move.
Go ahead.
Okay. Lucky me. I'll move approval of third and final reading of Ordinance 1073, an ordinance providing a rezoning of a portion of 6th Street Northwest from north right-of-way line of 6th Avenue Northwest to the south right-of-way line of the Cedar River Railroad Company from a city-owned street to M1 Light Industrial.
I will second.
Motion by Schneider, second by Drenkow. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, Carla.
Birgen,
Yes.
Beaufore,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Rathe,
Yes.
Kangas,
Yes.
Glaser,
Yes.
Drenkow.
Yes.
On a vote of 7 to 0 with 0 absent, third and final reading of Ordinance 1073 is approved. Item 7, set the public hearing date to consider the voluntary annexation request for a parcel in the northeast Waverly located on the eastern side of 39th Street Northeast.
I'll move to approve the setting of the public hearing date to consider Birgen County Fair Association's voluntary annexation request for parcel ID 10064000005 Northeast Waverly, located on the eastern side of 39th Street Northeast for June 15th, 2020 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of City Hall.
Second.
Motion by Glaser, second by Rathe. Council discussion, or I can hand this over to James if necessary, but this is a small fingerling that just goes outside of the city limits, currently off of the fair's property. They do own the property.
Correct, sir.
Any other questions or discussion here? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Item number 8, second reading of ordinance 1074, an ordinance providing for rezoning of parcels owned by the Bremer County Fair Association located to the east of 39th Street Northeast from A1 Agricultural District to M1 Light Industrial District.
I will move approval of second reading of ordinance 1074, an ordinance providing for rezoning of parcel ID 10064000005 and parcel ID 10064000002, owned by the Bremer County Fair Association and located to the east of 39th Street Northeast from A1 Agricultural District to M1 Light Industrial District.
Second.
Motion by Drenkow, second by Schneider. Council discussion. Hearing none, roll call, Carla.
Beaufore,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Rathe,
Yes.
Kangas,
Yes.
Glaser,
Yes.
Drenkow,
Yes.
Birgen.
Yes.
On a vote of 7 to 0 absent, second reading of ordinance 1074 is approved. Item number 9 is a discussion only item. No action will be taken for the matter of fireworks ordinance section 104.4.01. I'm going to let either Bill or James or the two of them kind of introduce maybe some of the background or history.
I guess I'll jump in and Bill can correct me when I say something wrong here. We first were handed the reins to determine if fireworks should or should not be allowed to be shot off the city limits. I believe it was about 4 years ago, the state legislature, who then determined that they should intercede and direct us accordingly when that should happen. So initially it was from June 1st till July 8th. Council in the next couple of years trimmed that down from June 26th, I believe, 25th or 26th, I want to say 25th now, to July 8th. And so each year we have discussed this. It's been 2 years since it's been changed from what it currently is. I said, I believe it's June 25th to July 8th. And so this is a little later than we normally would have discussed it. But again, we have time with approximately 3 meetings before the fireworks currently could be set off in neighborhoods to kind of to see if there's any need to make any changes to the ordinance itself. I know we received an email from a gentleman kind of outlining some of the issues he felt were existing in our current ordinance, but we do have a lot of those covered in our special use permit. I can let Bill kind of run through some of that as well, but we're primarily looking for not as much of changes of that nature, but changes from council as it pertains to the dates or anything similar to that, as that's really the focus this time of year is when they should and should not be allowed to be fired off. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions I can, or if Bill wants to interject any comments on the ordinance or the permits as well, we're just happy to do so.
On the liability issue that they raised, that clearly we've been using the special use permit to do that, which has $1 million limit. And I know the suggestion in the email was maybe raising that. Some cities are going higher. So it really is we could add that at any time.
Okay. Just for the 10,000-foot view of what the current ordinance states, and I can read the limitations here just so everybody is familiar with it. So under limitations, the restrictions are June 25th to July 8th, hours of noon to 10 p.m. on Sunday through Thursday days, and then the hours of noon to 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. The hours of noon to 11 p.m. on the 4th of July. So the difference being the 1 hour between weekends and the holiday itself. Item 2 is December 31st, New Year's Eve from noon to 12:30 a.m. on January 1st. So what this means for it's obvious with New Year's Eve what that is, but what it really means here for the 4th of July is the 9 days leading up to the 4th of July, the day of the 4th of July, and then 4 days after. So from there, I guess we can go free-for-all style, but I would entertain thoughts from everybody, including our guests, if they're so inclined.
So I feel like I should go first because I was the person who kind of pushed to make sure that this is on our discussion.
And then I was informed that Ann had made that request too. So go ahead, Brian.
So what I do want to point out is last year when we brought this up for a vote, a restricted window of allowed fireworks of just the 3rd and the 4th passed on a 4-3 vote on first and second readings, and it didn't actually fail until the 3rd reading on a 3-3 vote when one of the council members was unable to attend. So the only reason that this wasn't changed last year was just because scheduling conflicts. I was one of the people who voted against the change because I wanted to let it go another year, see how it worked, and get feedback afterwards. In the weeks after the 4th of July, I had a listening post at the Veterans Post, and what I heard was a lot of people who basically said it wouldn't be horrible to restrict it to just 2 days. I heard a lot of people who, weren't fans of the fireworks at all. There were a lot of pet owners who were upset. And I'm kind of ambivalent about the pet owners, but there were also a lot of veterans talking about PTSD problems, and I'm very sympathetic to people in that situation. I remember a table of gentlemen who all said that, we didn't have to do anything, but they wouldn't be upset if it got restricted a little. And then I went to another table, which is all of their wives, and I think pretty much all of them agreed that it would be fantastic if they weren't shooting off their fireworks quite so much. And restricting it to 2 days would be plenty. I would also like to draw attention to the fact that this law only applies to the city limits, that if you can find your friend with a farm out in the country, you can go and you can shoot off your fireworks to your heart's delight. But there were a lot of people who are discussing part of the problems is how close together the houses were. So there were people who were setting off their fireworks on their property, not 50 feet from their neighbor's property. And that is completely legal under how this ordinance is written. So I think that, while we're going to allow fireworks in town, I think 2 days is plenty, given the type of proximity people are going to have fireworks going off. There were lots of people who are complaining about fireworks debris in their yard. And, of course, that's a matter of good behavior and being kind to your neighbors, which is, it would be nice if we could legislate that too. But I think that restricting this down to 2 days is sufficient for people to express their patriotism and their joy. And if they really need to set off fireworks earlier than that, they do have the opportunity to go find a place out in the county for doing that. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, sir.
We do live in Iowa, so I feel like 2 days, if we limit it to 2 days, we might not be able to get to set off fireworks because those 2 days may be storming, windy, just not the right weather. I feel like, we need to set something, and we've already set something, and we need to leave it alone because that causes more and more confusion for people. And I feel like people will adapt to this. It sounds like there's a lot of people. You said you had a listening post, you talked to a lot of people. It sounds like there's a lot of people enjoying fireworks and a lot of people that want to shoot them off. And it sounds like, yes, it's annoying people. I've got 3 dogs and they like to bark. I try to control it as much as I can. So I just feel like if we keep changing things, it's going to get confusing. We're going to have more and more calls and people are going to say, well, I thought it was these dates and now it's changed again. And the police officers are going to have to give, go talk to people or implement more things that we don't necessarily need to do. So I guess that's my take on it. We live in Iowa, we have weather issues limiting to 2 days, and it sounds like there's a lot of people that are being responsible, that are liking the fireworks, and not everybody has a friend out in the country.
I was one of the people last year who voted to restrict it to 2 days. My main concern is for people with PTSD. In my other line of work, I have participated with patients to try to plan their safety plans over the course of a 2-week period. When do they need to go to the basement? When do they need to seek the comfort and support of other veterans? And I think it's unpredictable. I think it's more confusing what the legislature did. Setting aside an entire month to celebrate the 4th of July, I thought was very confusing. So most of the people I have heard from have asked it to be restricted to a couple of days. I haven't got as many emails this time about banning them altogether. People seem to be a little bit more responsible with it as the years have gone on compared to the first year when people had holes in the side of their houses and debris on their roofs of their neighbors, and people were setting them off in alleyways, which is not private property. So I still think that restricting it to July 3rd and 4th is the best option.
Yes, I just have a timing question here, a procedural question, because this ordinance would be changed. We'd need to pass it in 3 different council meetings. Is that correct? If I'm looking at my schedule, that would mean the 3rd meeting would be June 22nd, and that would only be 4 days before the change, or 3 days before the change would actually take effect. Am I looking at my calendar correctly?
That is correct, sir. With the timing that we have here, it would be the 1st, the 15th, and the 22nd, which is a study session. You would have to overrule the usual not conducting business on that, which has been done off and on in certain needy situations. But you would have to have a 3rd and final reading and the public hearing also, as we always do in this case, on the 22nd itself, 3 days before the true start of what is currently the allowed time to shoot off the fireworks.
Yeah, I guess I'm just concerned about this telescoped time, that we're pushing us into just a couple of weeks. I certainly agree with the need to maybe to have the number of days that we can legally shoot off fireworks be somewhat curtailed. But to a certain extent, this is really kind of a largely symbolic ordinance. People have been shooting off fireworks already since the middle of May. I guess it would be nice to say we would prefer that you only do it during the couple of days around the 4th of July. And hopefully we would have voluntary compliance from people. But if we're going to change this with such little notice, I would certainly hope that there would be some major attempt for people to be informed that this ordinance had changed. That the police would certainly use some discretion, which I think they do anyway, in enforcing this. My preference would be that we could have started talking on this a month or 2 ago, so that we had some good citizen input. I guess I'm a little concerned about this being kind of a last minute thing. I'm certainly in favor of it, but I think that I would rather have this done in a more normal process where we had normal times for people to come in and do public hearings. This is an item that is very controversial, and there's some people have very strong feelings on either side.
I would agree.
This isn't an emergency either, so I don't feel like we should take a study session just to pass this ordinance for fireworks. It should have been brought up sooner. I don't feel like this is an emergency. I feel like we shouldn't be doing that on a regular basis.
I would be fine if it didn't go into effect until the following year, but I mean, I was expecting this to have been brought up a month previous, as it had been the year before that. So I was kind of surprised when it didn't show up on the agenda, which is why, Ann and I both independently finally got around to pushing this through, saying, hey, why haven't we talked about this already? So I'm also disappointed that it didn't get talked about earlier. But if it's the proximity to the 4th of July, I would be okay with passing it for the following year. But I think that I don't want this to happen again. I mean, I was expecting to have it talked about before this 4th of July. I don't want to say, well, we're not going to talk about it now because it's too close to the 4th of July. And then it moves around on the calendar and doesn't get talked about next year either. So that's kind of why I want to make sure that at least we have the conversation to talk about it.
Are we going to talk about this every year? Because I don't feel like we should talk about it every year. I think we should, do we talk about every ordinance every year?
Well, that's been my argument in the past, is that we have kind of every year since the fireworks were allowed, we've been altering it, changing it. Last year was the first year we didn't change it because it failed on the end. My other concern, again, this year with one is timing of it. 2, it's having the police, how do we police it? We are going to have an ordinance in place that, are we really going to enforce it? How are we going to have an enforcement mechanism? Do we want police zipping around town on the lookout for it? We're going to buy a drone to keep an eye on people. I mean, it's going to be unenforceable for it because by the time the police get there, people will be done in many cases. Now, if they're smart enough or whatever to do it right in front of a police officer, I suppose that's going to catch them. But for the most part, you're going to have them setting off in neighborhoods or backyards or front yards and be done by the time the police get there. The other concern I have this year coming in is we are just now starting to come out of a kind of self-quarantined lockdown. And this is going to be a year I think people are going to want to blow off some steam, so to speak. And it may be a year where it's going to be hard to stop people from doing this.
I think the issue of whether this is enforceable is, it would be like saying, should we have speed limits? What percentage of the people that speed get ticketed for speeding? What percentage of the people that roll through a stop sign get ticketed? If you decided that any law needed to be enforced 100% of the time, we'd hardly have any laws. So I think that this will be enforced as best they can, like they do with any other breaking of the law. And I think we do have police that tend to use discretion in these matters. I think that it would be good to prepare for next year. And I think whether we discuss it every year, we discuss the Green Bridge every year, it seems like. And so I think we discuss issues that people think need to be discussed. Part of the reason we brought this up again was that we've been approached by people who asked about it. And so if you have citizens that think an issue is important, I think that it's our duty to bring it up. If it gets voted down or voted to keep it with a 2-week period, then so be it. But I don't think it's any less important than anything else. We just waived the 3rd reading on a building issue, which I don't think is an emergency either. I'm not saying we should rush this through, because I agree, if you do this and have the vote or the public hearing 3 days before the law changes, that's not appropriate. But I think planning ahead would be good for next season. And hopefully, if people want to celebrate the alleged end of a pandemic by blowing off explosives, you can trade one health problem for another one potentially, but so be it. But I think that we keep hearing from people for whom it's an issue. And so I think that makes it important enough to discuss.
I had just a couple things. First, I wanted to thank the citizens that did email me and got some phone calls on this as well. And I appreciate that dialogue. I won't repeat what a lot of the council has said, but there's a lot of confusion when you have a state law and you come off of that. There's probably about 37 people watching or listening to this meeting right now, and maybe 300 read the newspaper article when it's in there. So the word on this, it's really confusing. And also, when you move fireworks to the country, you're moving, when somebody has an accident with fireworks, you want to be as close to the hospital as possible. So I really don't want to push fireworks being shot out in the country. One other point I will mention is Waverly is a small community, which basically, everybody other than the people in Ward 3 live on the edge of town. So I hear fireworks from out in the country coming in. So I don't think that we're going to really eliminate that. But I do think there's an opportunity for us here possibly to perhaps have, maybe we look at a volunteer, couple community nights where we just say, hey, this is going to be fireworks in Waverly for these couple nights, because I am sensitive to the needs of residents who have issues with this, and I think that that we can curtail that through volunteerism versus some ordinance that most people aren't going to pay attention to.
And if I may speak here, thank you, Matthew, for saying that as well. I am one of those persons who actually legitimately has a intense phobia of sudden loud noises, being fireworks. It's even the sight of balloons because they pop, and motorcycles and construction zones and super large crowds. So I am one of those persons who has kind of PTSD for these types of things. So again, I'm not saying to cancel or any of that. I definitely think restricting it, or even just educating, or like you said, volunteering a night or two, or promoting awareness about that, so people are a little bit more sensitive to others and their pets and things, because those are real issues that people face. And so I think just being mindful of those things, and just being considerate of those things that do come up and that people experience. So that's all I have to say. But that was good timing for me, because fireworks is not my year. So the shorter the time I can avoid going on walks, being outside, doing anything in that nature is appreciated, because it is very debilitating for me to experience that with my hands full or a child in my hand. So I appreciate any of that concerns there.
I have one other point from the law enforcement side. Is there anything we can do with real teeth on, I think we have a 100-foot rule on buildings. People are allowed to legally shoot those off. I think that's fine. But boy, close to buildings, I think that is something that is the place where we do have to police stuff, in my opinion.
I do not believe there's anything in the ordinance regarding the distance from other properties. It is on your property, but if your property has someone else's building 20 feet away, you are completely legal to set it off on your property.
We're in state law there, though, which is what? Isn't that 100 feet on consumer fireworks?
I'm not sure. We can research that and find out. I think if you're having a hard enough time policing people shooting them off, period, it's going to be even harder to tape measure out and see if it was within 100 feet. I understand your point completely. I don't disagree. It's a very difficult thing to police and pursue, and have the police even take a further step than it is just to find people that have been complained against who have done it. So we can certainly look into the state law and see if there is a stipulation on the amount of distance between the building.
And so I would make the case that restricting a 2-day window versus enforcing a 2-day window versus enforcing a 2-week window is the same logistical problem. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about people doing it outside of that 2-week window or outside of that 2-day window. It's just as hard to enforce.
I don't want to belabor the point, but I think one of the reasons why we keep talking about this all the time is because it's a continuing issue. And it's one that just isn't going to go away. I think no matter what we decide to do here tonight, and my preference would be to take a strong look at this next year, starting maybe February or March, look at our ordinance, see what changes we can make, and whether we make changes in the ordinance or not, try to figure out some ways that we can get voluntary compliance from people. Because this is not an ordinance that really lends itself to policing. It really is largely unenforceable unless, like Brian said, somebody is dumb enough to be shooting off fireworks right in front of a policeman. So I think maybe this is something that the reason we're struggling with this is because this is something that requires more than just an ordinance, maybe some kind of public awareness campaign, or be kind to your neighbor or something. But I think that this is a problem that we are going to have to address a little bit more deeply than just by passing an ordinance and saying that we've done enough.
Well, and as I recall, last year there was quite a bit of research on what sort of ordinances surrounding communities and other communities had. And Waverly definitely had one of the more liberal ordinances, in the sense that, a long time period for putting off fireworks compared to most other communities our size and other communities in the area. So in that regard, we have one of the least restrictive ordinances around.
The only thing I'd like to add is the only people that I'm hearing from with this issue is those that aren't particularly, they don't care for it. They either have animals or they have PTSD. And so I'm not hearing from people that really want to shoot fireworks for 10 days and that's important to them. I'd like to see a little bit more restriction. I'd like to see, I don't know about 2 days, but I'd certainly like to see it maybe cut in half, or it's the 4 days before and maybe the 4th of July. So at least we're compromising a little bit and squeezing it down a bit. I do agree that we don't have enough time to do it this year because that would put us right before June 25th. But I do think that we need to reduce it a little bit.
I think I've heard from pretty much everyone on here. I like to echo, I think most everybody had kind of mentioned, hearing from different people, and this goes for all subjects of discussion with the city council in the decisions that are made here. But I would like to encourage everybody on all subjects to reach out to the council members, whether you're in support of, in opposition of a current ordinance or the way a decision is going, or just the talk of a new ordinance per se. Those opinions do matter, because it's hard when, people that know my position or know a particular council member's position for or against a particular matter. If they know my position, they're less likely to engage with me if they know that their opinion is the opposite of that. They will align with someone that supports them. And so if they know that, Matt Schneider supports that, but I don't, they're more than likely to communicate with him that, hey, I support your side. But even what I'm asking, I guess, is those that are opposed or in favor of something, you need to reach out to all of the council, email all of them. They all need to hear it. All too often I get emails that are sent to Matt and one particular ward council member, because they, feel that Tim doesn't care because they don't live in his ward. That's not the case at all. He has a vote for the entire community as well. So everybody needs to hear all of the opinions. So when you're reaching out, make sure that you communicate with all, especially on this one. So again, this was discussion only at this point in time, unless there's, looking forward to item number 10. Are we good with discussion or any other comments in closing for this?
The only thing I would add is if we're not proceeding with shrinking down the ordinance, is there any reason we couldn't set a voluntary 2 days? It's not an ordinance. It's just, hey, these 2 days we're going to, maybe that's not even council action. I don't know. But I really think that most of the voluntary fireworks can get, they can get, the citizen fireworks rather, can get shut off in a window that they voluntarily fall into.
I think you have a good point, Matthew, that, if we promote and say, hey, we want to see your fireworks on this day and this day, during this time and this time, and, let's, have a fireworks night, that people will probably participate, maybe in you'll have a lot of fireworks maybe that night, and we're not enforcing some law or ordinance or anything. We're just saying, hey, let's shoot off the fireworks, most of them these nights, and engage and look at it at a positive manner, not a, you can't do this. Okay, yes, you can do this, but we want to see you do it on these nights and make it more positive. That way we're not really,
So an attempt at consolidation, essentially, yeah, and Carly just mentioned, what if there is bad weather those nights? I mean, obviously we've dealt with rescheduling events a lot in the last few weeks. It's becoming almost a consistency in the community for all different kinds of reasons. But if you focus on, hey, this night is our first go-to night, and our rain date is this date, kind of giving some people some guidance of, hey, if you want to be considerate, these are the targeted nights to have that consideration, but still be able to discharge those and enjoy them. You may get people that camp out in their backyard to enjoy their neighbors because they know that's most likely when they're going to be shooting them, rather than just a random thing, which Ms. Burrell wouldn't necessarily appreciate just a random thing. But if she and others knew that this is the evening, there can be some preparation there.
Yes,
well, I think that's really,
hideout.
I mean, I think it's very confusing. If you're going to have an ordinance, it's very confusing to then have a voluntary segment of that ordinance that is preferred. And I think if you're going to use an argument about extending the window because of weather, the weather in December in Iowa is about as unpredictable as the weather in July. And so if it's snowing on December 31st, is there then a, separate day if weather for, circumstances? So I think we should look at this for next year. And I don't know if there's a purpose in going forward with the next item on the agenda, at least for this year.
Right. I think looking at the December dates for fireworks, the state of Iowa, their regulations state that, it's only on December 31st. We basically have kind of the same, our ordinance is identical to the state, so they don't even have a rain date. So we didn't restrict that any further. So it was, if you bought them and couldn't get them off that night, couldn't get them discharged, then I guess you held on to them until next summer.
Well, I think originally, didn't we shorten the December dates? I can't remember what the original state law was.
Okay, yeah.
I think it was just 1 day.
Yeah, it depends on what source. Yeah, I guess the 10th through the 3rd, you're right there. So there is an option. So maybe that's something, on the other end of the spectrum, that maybe there does need to be a small extension of December 31st through January 3rd for weather. All of those types of discussions. But I agree. If it were a decision for me to make, entertaining this fall, get the feedback of this go around, and then it can be brought back up.
Well, I would recommend, if we're not going to move forward this time, that we should basically discuss this the week after July 8th. So July 8th is the end of the current window. I would recommend that our next meeting after that, maybe we get the discussion session at study session at the end of July. We could come back and we could discuss this. Maybe we could have, again, that list that we saw last time of what other communities in the area are doing, what their ordinance are, so we can know how we compare to those people, to those communities. And then we can, hear from the community how it went this past 4th of July season. And if they, need 2 weeks or if 2 days would be sufficient, I think that would be a good time to revisit this.
Sounds good. I'll just go ahead, Rod.
I'm just going to say, I think that's an excellent idea.
Mm-hmm. I'll make the notation now for the July study session to revisit this on those terms. All right, moving forward, I think we've officially scratched item 10. And moving on to discussion item number 2, which is item number 11, discussion of the future of the 3rd Street Southeast Bridge, the Green Bridge. Again, discussion only, no action will be taken this evening. I'll let James, Mike introduce anything here.
I guess the only thing I'll say is we're just looking for direction now. The vote to not proceed forward with the 2-lane bridge leaves us with money we've borrowed for now for some kind of a bridge project. And so we're just looking for direction so we can get something on, whether it be June 15 or soon in the first meeting July, so we can proceed forward with whatever project we're going to do. And that's really the hope of our outcome tonight. I know it was asked to be put on tonight to discuss this future going forward, and that's what I'm looking for from the council, so staff and I can get to work on making this a reality, but we're looking for direction.
All right.
Well, let me say, I'm one of the people that wanted to bring this topic up tonight, and to me, the only topic we really need to be discussing is how quickly we can get the current bridge removed. As I understand it, the sole reason for not removing the bridge up to this time was that because there might have been some economies if the removal of the bridge were done at the same time as the new construction. But unless there's a motion to reconsider our vote at the last meeting, I don't think that's going to happen. The current bridge is dangerous, and if the bridge were to drop in the water, which it certainly could do if we have a high water event or even just from normal deterioration, it's going to be a lot more expensive to remove. So I think that our first priority is to get the old bridge removed before something really bad happens, and get that done as quickly as we possibly can.
I would agree with Rod. I think we need to remove that as quickly as possible. I've already emailed Mike Cherry some dates, and I'm going to push him, if council can approve this, it's always going to be, hey, can we do it any sooner? Because this is a very important flood mitigation project, in my view, for the city, and that we should be discussing also storing a piece of the bridge for historical purposes. I think that's important as well. I don't think this necessarily needs to end discussion of the bridge for the rest of the year and going forward regarding a new bridge. I think that with the COVID recession upon us, I would suspect there's a good possibility of new transportation funding at the federal level and all sorts of new programs that municipalities and DOTs are able to take part in. But that's going to take a little time to play out. And as James said last meeting, it's going to take, 6, 8, 10 months for us to even figure out what our financial situation is going forward. So I think it's really difficult for us to look at a multi-phase project this month. But I think it's very clear that we can proceed with removing the bridge this month. Thanks.
I would agree that I think it should be a priority to see about getting the current structure removed. I believe that the main reason for keeping the structure around was so that we could be eligible for this $1 million grant as a replacement of a bridge, as opposed to building new or a one-lane bridge or pedestrian bridge. The only reason we had the old structure still around was so we would be eligible for this $1 million grant. If we have decided to pass up that grant, then the old bridge serves no purpose other than to block the river. So we should definitely move forward on removing it. If after that we wanted to talk about pedestrian bridge, one-lane bridge, whatever, having the bridge removed doesn't interfere with that discussion at all.
I think it actually promotes that discussion, Brian.
I have to agree with Brian that we do need to start there by getting that bridge removed, is so that we can start further discussion. You know, many people have reached out and do want some sort of bridge, particularly a one-lane bridge. And now with the two-lane kind of off, you know, the table, they really, really want to see something there. They don't want it to just go away. So we really do need to push and get this, you know, the bridge, the Green Bridge taken down. Obviously, though, it is a historic piece. I think it is enlisted. And there have been concerns, and we do need to worry about what are we going to do to memorialize this bridge too. So that has also been a concern as well. So I feel like we do need to move forward, get the old bridge out, so it's not a concern, it's not a danger to the community, and move forward in our decisions on a one-lane bridge or a pedestrian.
I have a question for Mike. I've heard a couple of people talk about the removal of the bridge affecting the potential for flooding in the southeast section of Waverly. Will taking out the bridge, the concrete structures, the whole thing, which I assume everything will be gone if we remove the bridge, and will that actually affect the flooding risk for that part of town?
The bridge does create some backwater, so if you remove the structure, there is a little bit of benefit for those homes immediately upstream for maybe 100 or 200 yards.
Upstream from the bridge?
Correct.
Okay.
I'll share with you just briefly here, received a phone call from Pete Lampy. I know it's not a public thing, but his position on other boards, commissions within the city, wanted to just emphasize that the fact that once the bridge is removed, it jeopardizes those funds that may come from federal or state resources to do something in the future there. So
he is correct. And any stimulus funding or transportation bill that may come down from the federal or state government along that line would only be for a DOT standard 2-lane bridge, not a single lane bridge or pedestrian bridge.
At this point, though, I think leaving the bridge standing in the hope that at some point down the road we'll have a council that's willing to replace it is really a pipe dream. We had a vote that said that we weren't replacing it with a 2-lane bridge, or at least we were going to turn down the $1 million DOT grant to replace it. And I don't think anyone here on the council has the stomach to pay for the entire replacement of the bridge under our current economic situation with general obligation funds. So, you know, I right now in the near term and even the midterm, the next number of years, 5-6 years at least, and that's a long time to leave a derelict structure standing in the middle of the river. So I understand that there might be an issue that at some point in the future, you know, whether that $1 million grant would stay open if we kept the bridge up or didn't stay up, we just need to get the bridge down. It's getting to be too much of a derelict to leave standing when there's too much of a danger to have it stand. Something bad's going to happen, and then we wish we would have taken it down. I do have one other comment, though, and that is I've heard a number of times about keeping part of the bridge or retaining part of the bridge as a historical artifact. And I don't necessarily have any problem with that, but I do question to what extent this should be done with taxpayer funds. I mean, to my knowledge, the city doesn't provide funds to any other historical structure in the city, such as the Sturdivant House or the Historical Society Museum. Matter of fact, when I was a chair of the Historical Society board, we tried to get the city to waive part of the sewer hookup fee on Bremer Avenue, and the city refused to do it. So I don't think that we have a track record of providing city funds for maintaining some of these historical objects. Maybe the exception that proves the rule is the scale house at South Riverside Park, because the city did pay to renovate the scale house, but I believe, I'm not sure what our policy is on those kinds of things. I guess what I'm leading to is I don't have a problem with the city preserving part of the bridge and putting it somewhere, but I think if there's going to be a substantial cost to display the bridge, to put it on some kind of concrete pier or a concrete platform or something, I'm wondering if that couldn't be done by private fundraising. And maybe a project that the Historical Preservation Commission might be able to get rolling in the same way that Leisure Services got the ball rolling with the youth ball diamonds. I guess I'd kind of like to hear what other people's opinion are on that project.
I think, Rob, that we have spent some money with the historic neighborhoods as far as at least filing to apply for those status and paying for the surveys that have gone on with that. I know as part of the dam project, the display that's on the west side of the dam showing the history of the different dams that were there over time is there as well. So there is some precedent for it, not a lot, but there is some precedent for it. My biggest concern with putting part of the bridge on display somewhere is the liability part. It's not exactly like it's a playground safe structure that we want people climbing over potentially, or doing exercises on or anything like that. It's just not a piece for that type of purpose. So I would be worried about how that could be used.
I guess maybe the distinction here, Tim, is that it would be a city-owned property that would be located on a city-owned property, like the displays for the dam and like the scale house, both of which are city-owned properties that are located on a city-owned property. But I guess I would like to see, if we were doing a proposal on removing the bridge, what the proposal is and how much it's going to cost to preserve and display part of the bridge. I think that needs to be split out as a separate cost item.
I know we're kind of getting in the weeds here a little bit on this, but it's quite a bit of product there, commodity there. Is there any market to recycle that back on? We're able to recycle the steel in that at all?
I think there probably is some market. I don't think it's as robust as it was when you see recycling in general kind of tailing off. It would be hard to say or estimate what that could be. I don't know how much it weighs, or the cost to dismantle, to haul it, to ship it might outweigh what we might receive for it. I know we've discussed prior, and Mike has brought this up as well, with the removal of the concrete building in the park currently, the old Public Works storage facility down there, the dome, it is approximately the exact same width and diameter as a span of the bridge. We have talked about possibly locating a span there so it could sit on that. podium as well. But the timing of that may not be until much later in this year to have that demolished and ready to be used as a crumbled base for, like, say, the parking lot for the ball diamonds or things like that we've looked at using it for. So depending on how quick this bridge has to come out or can come out, the timing simply may not work for that. We would have to look into what that looks like on our end as far as removal of that structure, if it's a proper place to put it, if council wants to investigate that. This question was pitched to the Historic Preservation Committee when the repair of this bridge was not going to happen, and there was not a lot of interest in taking that on or putting that somewhere else in the city. It's only recently kind of revived that possibility when the discussion has again started to occur. So I agree with Tim, there's a liability to it, but it probably goes along the same line as a lot of things. If somebody crawls up the acorn statue in front of the city hall, it's probably not good either. But that is a more inviting view of it. We've talked about putting a path or a bike lane through it. A variety of things that could be done. It's just a matter of what would council like to see happen? What would you like staff to look into and investigate? And as we're moving through this, I guess for the 15th or the 22nd or July 1st, I guess it'd be July 6th, we'll just want to make sure we get some direction as to what do you want to see on for a formal vote to take place. And then if we need engineering to help determine how to take this thing apart and get rid of it, if we need to get that prepared, etc. So while you continue your discussion, please be cognizant of that we are looking for that kind of final direction for a future date as soon as you would like. We'll have to see how fast something like that can be put together so that this can, as you say, continue to move forward. Whether or not we preserve it, we'll have to get a time frame of when this can all occur too. With high water events, it might be more difficult to remove it. That's some of the things that we talk to engineering about to see how it works best.
I just want to express my due diligence to the constituents out there, and I think all of the rest of the council can agree to this, that we've heard from quite a few different people still in favor of a 2-lane, people in favor of a pedestrian, people in favor of a 1-lane, people in favor of nothing. And even though it's not financially and possibly even engineeringly, if that's a word, possible to repair, we have heard all of those. And for me, it's been pretty even across the board for all but the latter one, of what to do. And this removal, just like Pete said, is kind of that definitive, when it comes to dollars and cents, what we decide with a vote in the future, with the guidance that we give city staff to research, will permanently dictate how that, where we go from there, that first Y in the road. So I just wanted to articulate that I've heard from a vast majority or a great deal of people with a wide scattering of opinions. So for all very valid reasons across the board. So if anybody wants to comment like that, otherwise in my notes here, correct me if I'm wrong, looking at some type of direction towards design engineering or whatever needs to happen for removal, with part of that being a partial salvage that may or may not happen. Would that be an accurate statement? I think.
Well, I think I can, just speaking for myself, I think the decision of when to demolish it, part of that's going to be up to the engineers and what they recommend. But I think in order to know whether we should save a span of it, we need to see costs of that. So cost of demolition, costs of what engineering do you need to know how to demolish it safely, what to do with all of the rubble, and how much does it cost to put a span in that park. That seemed like the logical place to put it. And as Brian said, I think the only reason not to do it was because you could take it down and build a new 2-lane bridge at the same time and get the grant money. I think, I've been contacted about this from the minute our meeting ended 2 weeks ago, with people all over the spectrum. Some people very much still want a 2-lane bridge for all the reasons that we mentioned at the last meeting. Some people want a pedestrian bridge. I have not heard from anybody that wants to repair it at all. So, but as I've explained to people, the only way to revisit it is for one of the people who voted against it to put it back on the agenda. And so if that's not going to happen, then I think what I would like to see from city staff is direction about costs, engineering, what do we need to do to remove it and salvage a span of it for historical display.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was alluding to with.
Let me add one more thing there, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to see a proposed timeline to see how that would all fit together. If we do have to, if we are looking at preserving part of the bridge on the site that is going to be demolished, obviously we can't do that until it's going to be demolished. Is there some place where the bridge span can be stored temporarily? Those kinds of things. I guess I would like to see the bridge out before the river freezes over, but at least have a timeline that we can take a look at.
Yeah, fortunately, we own some property immediately adjacent to it that a span could be swung to until we got a place. So, James, if you can paraphrase, summarize what that list of deliverables would be, I'd appreciate that, just so we're all on the same page.
I'll meet with Steve tomorrow and we will identify all the needs and then try and get back to you in a timely manner when we feel we can really properly address all that. We have some estimates for some of it already, but a lot of it will take a little digging, especially when it comes to transporting it to another area where that could be removal. There's just a lot of moving parts with this now. And so from demolition to the dome demolition, we have those costs fairly at hand. It's everything in between that we have to look at then. So we'll certainly do that.
My other question was, what about the house that we now own on the north side of the river? What's the future of that, since that was going to be the staging area for construction?
That was potential staging area. You are correct. We will have to look at, once we get this figured out, we certainly don't have to demolish that house or move it to remove the bridge, I don't believe. Once this is figured out and completed, we could simply turn to sell the house back to someone else who would like it or continue to rent it. There'll be some options that council can discuss once this has been determined and figured out.
Mr. Mayor, I would just like to add too, there's a lot of discussion, and it seems to me like this was late in the last year of this 40-year bridge discussion of a bridge really being needed so Bremer Avenue doesn't die. And that's really quite incorrect. And really, in my view, it was really being used for political purposes in the conversation. And I think that we should understand that when the Bremer Avenue Bridge is being rebuilt, that will negatively impact the businesses along Bremer. And that won't matter if we build one bridge at 3rd or if we decide to build 50 bridges across the Cedar. When we take out the bridge at Bremer, it's going to impact businesses. So we need to be ready for that. And in my view, the DOT should be paying us more than $1 million.
So what would you suggest?
Well, I don't.
The DOT paying us money, which they're probably not going to do.
Well, is there a bridge swap program in the future? If there is, obviously, we need to look at that. But I just really want to try to separate those conversations because I think it pushes the public and council into a box to do things that I'm not sure that we should be doing. So.
I don't think the issue of supporting the merchants in that section of Bremer Avenue is a political issue. I think that, we have received emails from business owners who are worried. The construction was a hit, coronavirus is a hit, and I think they want to know that we care about them, not just from us saying that we care. And so I don't think it's political to bring it up when people are scared that they're going to lose their businesses and they're worried about how people are going to get to that part of town. So I don't think that's accurate that we raised that issue for purely political reasons. I don't know that any of us are going to get reelected if we decide to run again on the basis of the Green Bridge. And so, you know, I think, as we said before, we bring this up because people are concerned. And so I think that they're also concerned about fire access, fire and police access to the eastern section of town and the western section of town for police access during the Brever Avenue Bridge absence. And so we are in a bit of a box timing wise, but there are other reasons besides that people were in support of a bridge across the river there.
And a bridge will be beneficial to the businesses, but it's not a, you know, when we pull $6.6 million out of the tax base, that's going to really negatively impact the businesses, and not just the ones on Bremer, all of them.
Well, I would say that there's kind of two sides to this, in the sense that having the 3rd Street Bridge would have been helpful for the downtown merchants during the Bremer Avenue reconstruction. On the other hand, I have heard it said, and I agree, that planning infrastructure based on a temporary problem is not a good strategy. So if we're talking about putting the Green Bridge in for the sake of one construction season, that's probably not good long-term planning. That if you're putting the bridge in, it should be for the long-term benefits and not simply for an 18-month window. So I really see both sides of that argument. I supported having the bridge there for the downtown merchants, but I can also see the argument that you shouldn't do long-term planning based on short-term problems.
Brian, I have to agree with you on that as well. And I think most of us are in agreement with, you know that, but, you know, and I'm not against having a bridge there at all. I really am not. One of the questions that I received was, if we had a 1-lane bridge that people can get across, what would that do to the infrastructure around, like the street, 3rd Street? Are we going to still have, we're going to see as much traffic as a 2-lane would have brought? Is that street going to still cost us a lot of money then in a couple of years? What cost comes with a 1-lane in addition, you know, or, you know, is that going to be the same as it would have been with a 2-lane? Is it going to be questionable? Is it not going to be the same as it would have been with a 2-lane? Because I really do think that having some sort of access is important in our community. Everybody that, I mean, I want to say like 98% of the people that have contacted me want some sort of access. Most of them want a driving access, where I didn't think that a 2-lane was necessary and could have caused a lot of damage to the road being so busy as a 2-lane. So what my question, I guess, is, if it was a 1-lane, how much more damage down the road would we have?
Well, one thing I need to say
poses a problem in itself, because you don't have any visibility to the other side, because it has to be elevated out of the floodplain. The amount of arch on each side of the end, you can't see across it. So then you have to signalize it potentially if you're going to use it for truly everyday traffic. And that in itself causes a problem. If someone runs a yellow light and someone gets a green light, they meet in the middle, who's going to back from that? It is a whole different set of problems for a single traffic lane bridge that we have discussed in the past. It's certainly possible, but the elevation and the pitch on the ends is a lot more substantial than you'd have for a 2-lane, which has a longer approach. And that was some of the argument initially 4 years ago, when it would impact people's properties and the height of the road outside of their driveways, and there was a lot of that discussion. So any option you go forward with, there'll be pros and cons. We can discuss any of them. The report that we've attached has the cost for any certain style of bridge you can think of, single lane, et cetera, pedestrian, full concrete that'll hold the aerial fire truck if you want. All those are out there to be looked at and reviewed again. That was constructed by WHKS 3 years ago. We would add about 15% and talking to Mike for inflation costs. So again, it's right there to look at, but everything that we do will have pros and cons from a 2-lane to tearing it out to a single lane to a pedestrian only to a pedestrian with emergency vehicle access possibilities. We can certainly discuss any of that you would like going forward, but there is no good solution that accomplishes everything, unfortunately.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I think, you know, on the citizens and the businesses that have contacted me, we do need something, specifically a traffic bridge, even if it's 1 lane. So yes, we have signals, and you know what? I've driven on the Green Bridge several times, and there's been times where I could see somebody coming and they're still coming at me, and I've had to back up on the Green Bridge, unfortunately. So that stuff's happened. I've never seen anything horrible on that bridge happen, being a 1 lane. But I think we do need to move forward with this and getting the Green Bridge mitigated, and have further conversation on what type of access we want and the citizens want, because I know they do want it, and so do the businesses.
One concern that was brought up to me by one individual, or actually a couple, was after a removal with no replacement, the access to Southeast, specifically the 7th Avenue low spot. There have been any cost estimates in the past that you can reference what it would take so that that's not an island down there. That might be something to add to the mix here of that eventually being the next issue if there's not anything going across the river.
I know we've had discussions where the road was elevated and people thought it created a dam, so it was brought back down. So it's been all over the board as far as how much does it take to waterproof the entire area. I think it was 13 million 5-8 years ago, which is probably close to money now. So we'll certainly dig that out and see if we can locate those costs and get some estimates as well, sir.
Okay. All right. I think we've got all the P's and Q's in line with that. And of course, if council has any small things that come to mind, by all means, email myself and James, and we can make sure that they're addressed if you have any afterthoughts about that, because again, this is basically study session. So, all right. Move on to item number 12, COVID-19 update.
Yes, sir. We just kind of wanted to bring everybody up to speed. As you've probably been following, the governor has opened up a large deal of the entire community in some fashion or another. I know Garrett can speak to if we would need him as far as playgrounds. A lot of those things that were put away, skate parks, those are all open now. A lot of our pitch tonight was to have Sarah, who I know has stayed on through this whole meeting, to kind of give us a breakdown of what the library is also doing. I know they started a little bit of a change today. We as staff have talked about the possibility of opening all city buildings on the 15th. Or if council has a different preference, we can certainly do that. Part of our logic a few weeks still out would be the push for the Civic Center then to possibly start to do renting again. And we may not do that till July 1st, just because of the requirements at hand. We'd have to start to figure out capacity, how many people can fit in, what configurations. It's just a lot of what if that we may not have the answers for if we get a rush of wanting to rent those. But Garrett, if you can give a very brief kind of where we are from Parks and Rec, then we'll let Sarah kind of go into library, which is one of the primaries here. But if council has any discussion points after these two individuals speak, again, the 15th is what we're looking at to possibly open all city buildings to the public again.
Yep. Thank you, James. As James mentioned, playgrounds and restrooms opened today. We do have signs posted at each playground, at each restroom, by water fountains, by each shelter. We are cleaning restrooms and drinking fountains every day. That's typical what we would do anyway when they are open. And then playgrounds and shelters are not being sanitized. There are signs at each one, like I mentioned, just, warning citizens of that. They are open, but they are not being sanitized. Also, as James mentioned, with Civic Center reservations, we're thinking the same for actual shelter reservations. And we are not planning on taking any shelter reservations until July 1. Or I should say, we're taking reservations. That date cannot just be before July 1. So, you know, right now, if people want to gather at the shelter, that is on them. We are not encouraging that. And then the last thing I'll just mention now is about the pool. We are still on a holding pattern for that. I have seen more and more cities across the state are not opening. So I've just been watching that as close as I can to see if they're going to see if anybody is going to open. Right now, we wouldn't be opening until at least the end of June. And if that's the case, then we'll make that decision. We still will need to put water in the pool to run pumps. We may need to put water and leave water in the pool to protect the paint. We're still looking into that and what the cost would be to chance damaging the paint by the sunlight or to circulate water all year, or all summer, I guess I should say. So we're still looking into the cost effectiveness of that. So if anyone has any questions on any of that stuff, I'll take it. Otherwise, I'll let Sarah talk a little bit.
Garrett, I do have one question regarding the pool. You mentioned you're waiting to see what other, people are going to do with opening. Assuming that you're not waiting on obviously a government ordinance from that, but if it's just more about a preference and a decision that you were to make, what is leading that charge? Like, what are you looking at? Trends declining? Like, what would help make that decision, I guess?
Sure. What I'm looking at is if social distancing is still intact, we're not going to be able to open and monitor that for open swim. Technically, right now, if we wanted to, we could fill the pool up and be open for lap swim. Obviously, for lap swim, that's not cost effective for us. We're not going to do that. So that's that's how I'm making that decision as to if we can have open swim or not.
The other part of that is when you look at the timing, we usually are having to close by mid-August to start with because we lose a lot of our lifeguards and staff to college or sports. And even if we can get open in July, we have to weigh out what is the cost of 6 weeks, passes and week passes and monthly passes. Where's that all going to fall in? And if we don't draw the numbers, how does that work? And if we are the only destination, what will that do to us if others around us close? I know Garrett participates in a lot of conference calls with his peer group around the state on this, and people wouldn't think it's that kind of an issue that you need that discussion, but when you start really digging into it, it's a lot more complicated than just do we put water in and start going, even from staff availability in the pool of lifeguards.
Yes, I experienced that problem when I was at the W staffing lifeguards for group fitness, so I get that for sure. Thanks, Garrett. Thanks, James.
Yeah, thank you, Tasha.
Any other questions for Garrett? None. And Sarah, if you'd like to run us through where the library's at, I think that's kind of a big topic we're all waiting for.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. First of all, I want to say that our staff has been working really hard, and we're all very anxiously looking forward to the day that we can open again. It's been strangely quiet around here. But the staff has been working on a number of things that I think in the long run are going to be beneficial for the library. This week, as of today, we are taking orders for home delivery for folks who can't come out, choosing not to because of health reasons or whatever. We're doing home deliveries starting today. We did get a phone call from the daughter of whose mother is immunocompromised, and was just elated to find out that we'd bring items for her. So that's going to be a good long-term service. We've put the summer reading program online, which people can register for from our website. And I think we've already got 350 some registrants. Our normal numbers for a summer would be a little over 500. So we're doing really well, hoping more people will sign their kids up and take part in the teen summer reading program and adult one as well. We've purchased some additional digital resources that are available through the webpage, and we're seeing better use of our digital resources, more use, which again, I think is a good thing in the long run to give that some visibility. So we're working on a number of things in the downtime. Like I said, we started taking orders today for home deliveries. We've also been, through our drive-up window, which is a godsend right now, we've been letting people come through and pick up hold items that they've been waiting for. They can also call right now and ask us to pull up to 10 items for them, and then the next day they can drive through the drive-up and pick them up. So I think we got 45 calls today from patrons with orders for tomorrow. So we've got a huge shelf of orders that we've placed. So I think people are excited about that. We plan to stay in this phase for at least 2, maybe 4 weeks. And I think we'll just be reevaluating as we get closer to mid-June where we're at. And I think the most important factors for us are what the case counts in Bremer County are doing, if they're staying stable as they have been. If we would get into a situation where we have a June spike, that would probably change our plans for a next phase where we would open the building on a limited basis. We don't know exactly what that next phase looks like, but we're kind of continuing to discuss that. We're talking about masks. The staff already is practicing wearing masks in the building. Right now, the staff is working. We're kind of at half staff right now because we're working on either team 1 or team 2 and just trying to control the exposure of staff members in the building so that we have a more limited number of people that we interact with every day. There's all kinds of things that we've been reading about other libraries doing when you get to that next phase, as far as trying to help keep the visits short, because we know exposure time is a big factor. So you maybe remove furniture, you maybe cut the number of computers down to fewer. Some people are doing computer use by appointment. Like I said, we don't know exactly what that next phase looks like for us, but we're working on those things all the time. And I guess just kind of watching the local conditions and trying to think of the ways that we can keep staff safe and patrons safe, because we do have youngsters all the way up to elderly folks, and they all interact here together. I mean, about our average per hour is about 50 people per hour visit the library. And that's a lot of mixing, a lot of face-to-face contact, which is really what we're concerned about, even more so than the surfaces. Although we are quarantining return items when they come in for 3 days before we shelve and repackage, and being very careful with our staff to not do anything that would reinfect the items before we send them back out. So again, mask wearing, gloves, that kind of thing. A lot of hand washing.
Outstanding. Any questions for Sarah? Kind of how the library is proceeding forward?
I don't really have any questions necessarily, but just want to emphasize how important summer reading programs are to our youth. And so whatever we can do to facilitate those and just general resources that the library has that require you to physically either stop to pick something up or go in to utilize is very, very important. There was a discussion I had with somebody about getting it open, and one of their concerns was, a lot of times during the summer and after school, there's just a major influx of youth that they're using the library, don't get me wrong, but they might not be using it to the right purposes, especially during a time like this. And I said, well, what do you propose might happen there? And I knew this was going to be on tonight. And their comment was, maybe limiting children that are under the age of 16 to, being there with a responsible adult. So it doesn't turn into a daycare and romper room where we're trying to limit exposure, that kind of thing. So just something to pass on to you.
Yeah, those are some issues we've started to talk about. And certainly that does get difficult because that concept of a community gathering place is present for all ages too. But yes, we do get very full with kids after school, and summer is a really busy time for kids at the library. So yeah, those things we're keeping in mind.
It's definitely a balancing act, and I know it's in good hands to attempt to juggle. So you'll get there. So
thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. The only item I wanted to bring up, Mayor, then is, like I said, we'll kind of shoot for the 15th to reopen city buildings. We'll put out a formal press release at some time. But everybody's been kind of anxious to have live council meetings as well. With the requirements from the governor, with social distancing still in effect, we've tried to measure out multiple scenarios to get you 6 feet apart in the dais, and there's too many of you up there. So it's been difficult, but we did have a solution we came up with. If you as a council chose to, we could hold meetings in the Civic Center. There's plenty of space to spread you out as far as you would have to be. There's room for the public in the back of it. The only downside is it would not be televised as this is, or live streamed in that manner, except for if someone did Facebook Live or YouTube or something like that. We simply just don't have the equipment in that space to do a production as we do now in the current council chambers. So I wanted to throw that out to you as a possibility. If the governor's stance stands and June will be on Zoom, we would look at July for the first meeting of possibly bringing council back together. And so I don't know if you want to comment tonight or if you want to shoot an email individually. I know the mayor and myself would kind of like to hear what your thoughts are on this. Again, it's kind of a free-for-all if you want to discuss it tonight or if you want to have that discussion later and think about it and provide us some feedback online. But it was just another option we've been thinking about the possibility of, to at least enhance the participation of the public again, but yet still allow the council to be properly spread apart as dictated by the governor's proclamation.
Yeah, and with that, we talked about that, and the only, you lose and gain some with it. Yep. But the biggest part is the live stream to the television would be the only loss there. So the live stream there. So we could have, represented from the newspaper there, live streaming it. We can have somebody with authorization to stream it on the city's Facebook channel. It would be able to be broadcast on YouTube then as well. Definitely would be recorded, through those means, but it just wouldn't have the live aspect. So, and we talked to Wartburg a little bit more, and maybe they have something that they can manipulate and rig up for us to allow that to happen. So.
James, I have a question, James. I know at the hospital at our screening stations, they've put up plexiglass. Have you considered at all putting up plexiglass between the city council seats?
We'd actually talked about that. It's just with the chairs and how you sit and the composition, how it is without a barrier between you to start with. It'd have to be something that could be extended than the height. It's a lot of plexiglass and how to anchor it so it was properly really spaced between council is the difficulty, because again, you really don't have much of a barrier between you now to attach or assert something to, like you would see in the front of a desk or something like that. So while small ones can be done, would they be beneficial? We really don't know. And if you move your chair at all, it would kind of, what she got in the chairs and actually demonstrated, it just didn't seem to work. But we have looked at those possibilities. You could mask up and have your meeting behind masks. Again, it's how much you really want to have the live meetings. We can certainly find a way, I believe. We just want to offer up one that wasn't quite so distracting for council in general. But again, it does, as the mayor has said, come without a live stream to YouTube. But again, we could record it in a sense as well. So certainly something to think about.
Is it state law we have to be 6 feet apart? I mean, I guess council meetings in South Dakota, they seem to be kind of normal. And I guess I would just push that we need to get back to normal as quickly as possible. And if that's in the Civic Center, that's fine. But I say as quickly as possible.
I just know it's the emergency proclamation to try and cover social distancing, which is the 6 feet guideline that's there. I don't believe it's a law by any means. It's just what is everyone comfortable with on the council. And if everyone's comfortable with being that close, staff and I can certainly be in the audience and you guys can certainly have a meeting. We just want to offer it up. So no, it's part of the proclamation more than a law, that it was a guideline that is still being followed until June 25th.
I do think one thing that may be prudent in July or whenever at some point to get to review council being able to call in sick. I mean, legitimately, if I have a runny nose, I'll generally push through, but I think I'm going to have to rethink some of those things now.
So we've talked about policies and procedures. Should they be amended when it comes to quorums because of the Zoom capability now? Should all that be reviewed again? I think that would be a good thing to do.
I would really hesitate to push too quickly, especially if we're in an enclosed building. If we were outside, so we were exposed to, UV light where, these germs don't survive that long, that'd be one thing. But given the fact that we're using, an enclosed space, recirculated air, we're all breathing everybody's air. If we have any guests, they're facing us, we're facing them. We're really exposing each other to a lot of germs. As long as we're talking about being in an enclosed space, I think we should definitely not hurry back to trying to get to business as usual until we're really seeing the numbers not just stabilizing, but decreasing.
Right, and I think we're exemplifying that by not rushing to open up City Hall, those types of things. So those measures, I think we're, taking very good consideration to protect our staff and those types of things. So, I would agree with that, Brian.
Well, I just have to say that I would be uncomfortable if we were in a situation where we were closer than 6 feet. If not only just for health reasons, but I think it provides a bad example for people when people are supposed to be social distancing, and we don't even practice that as a government body. So if we're going to meet in person, we need to be able to be in an area where we can be at least 6 feet apart. I think that being able to discuss topics in the same building where we're face to face, I think has a great deal of merit to it. I think as long as citizens have the opportunity to have at least one or two different methods of being able to log on to the meeting and see what's going on, even if it isn't on the normal work channel, as long as they can do it through some other means and can look at a recording of the meeting at some point. It's not ideal, but our obligation is to work as a city council. And I think the being on television is secondary to that. So I would be in favor of being able to meet in person as quickly as possible, but still to maintain all the social distancing requirements that we're expecting everyone to maintain.
I do have concerns about losing the television access. If I've learned anything from doing telemedicine the last couple of months, it's how few people have reliable internet to see things online, whether it's Facebook or just on the YouTube. So I think we need to really think carefully about whether to eliminate that TV access, unless it could be put on the local cable channel somehow later.
I have to say I received a couple emails regarding some disappointment in not being able to go to meetings and not having internet access and feeling like maybe they can't communicate as easily because we're online, and they feel like one of the comments or emails were they feel like they weren't able to communicate as easily their needs or wants and their opinions because we were on Zoom and maybe they didn't understand how to use the equipment, or they didn't have some type of access. So it is, I think, important that we get back as soon as possible. And maybe looking at amending some things, like maybe half of us can be there and half of us on Zoom. That way some people can, come in, citizens can come in and still be present as well. So I think that's just there's a lot of different options maybe.
All right. Moving on to item 13 on the agenda, approval of the mayoral appointments. Approve the following. Jolynn Dorrance is replacing Linda Schrage on the Cable Commission for a term expiring February 1st, 2025. Scragg, sorry. Apologize for that, Jolynn, or Linda. Mary Ventulo is replacing Linda Hovden on the Historic Preservation Commission for a term expiring June 30th, 2023. Seek a motion.
Move approval of the mayoral appointments.
Second.
Motion by Kangas, second by Birgen. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. They are approved, and I appreciate their willingness to serve. Item number I is reports from boards and commissions. Board of Adjustments minutes from January 13th, 2020. Historic Preservation Commission minutes from January 27th, 2020. Planning and Zoning Commission minutes from March 5th, 2020. Board of Adjustment minutes from March 9th, 2020. Library Board of Trustees minutes, March 10th of 2020, all received into record. Staff updates, James.
I don't know if we actually have any more, unless Garrett has anything you'd like to add, sir.
Yep, just one quick one. Although we are closed in the Civic Center to the public tomorrow, we are open for voting. So voting will be taking place in the Civic Center tomorrow.
I think it's all we have, sir. Thank you.
While that subject is there, just so you're aware, voting for wards 1, 2, and 3 are here at the Civic Center. Wards 4 and 5 are at Redeemer Lutheran Church. There is a change. A lot of people from Ward 3 used to vote over at Redeemer, but they've shifted. So just be aware of that you may be sent to a different location to vote. Because Bartles, so it's actually Ward 5 is being sent to Redeemer. So be aware of that. Council, start with Mr. Schneider is on my top left.
Just wanted to thank everyone who gave cans and bottles for Heritage Days on Saturday. We had a donor match everything that was donated on Saturday. So I know with Heritage Days being down, that little bit extra and little extra time and putting on a great event next year will definitely go a long ways. But also a reminder to everyone that we can, good place to put our cans and bottles in the parking lot of Fairway there. In the can and bottle place, not in their parking lot.
All right, Mr. Birgen is next.
First thing I'd like to do is I would like to congratulate James Bronner and the staff on the fantastic job they did with bond rating. I mean, the fact that we continue to have these excellent bond ratings and get these fantastic interest rates is just a testament to the fantastic job that he and his staff is doing. So I really want to call him out and say, you know, you're doing a great job and we really appreciate it, and you're a credit to the city, and we can credit, no pun intended, really appreciate all the good work that you're doing in terms of keeping that bond rating so high. So I wanted to thank you there.
Thank you, sir.
The second thing I wanted to point out is I really wanted to point out the importance of the entire city council supporting the decisions that we made. I have seen city councils in the past that have a tendency to a vote will go one way and they will continue to rehash it for months and months after the vote. I think that when this city council votes on something, and in particular, I'm talking about the Green Bridge, we should all support the decision that the city council made, and we should move forward with that. I don't think anything is gained by rehashing old decisions in the news and social media. I think that we agree that the city council made a decision and that we will support the decision the city council made, and we will move on from there. So I appreciate the fact that the city council made a decision, and I think that it is the duty of everyone on the city council to accept that decision and move forward. And I'm doing that, and I would encourage everyone else to look to the future and not look to the past and rehashing past decisions.
I appreciate that. Mr. Drenkow is next up.
Well, let me join Brian in giving kudos to James and his staff. That is a fantastic report, and I wish I could borrow money at 1% interest. Unfortunately, my credit rating isn't quite as good as the city, so I'll have to settle for what I can get. I see Mike Cherry's name is still on the board, and I assume Mike is listening. I wonder if I could get a short update on the 4th Street reconstruction. I see that there are some road closed signs and some barriers and things going up today.
So it's getting started down by this corner with the cemetery, and that will take a few days. As far as actually closing and detouring 4th Street traffic, it may be later this week. More likely it will occur next week, along with the closure of a portion of 10th Street southwest by Meyer Pharmacy. And I'll add to it that also starting the week of June 8th, they are planning to start work on 20th Street Northwest. So it seems like construction activity will be picking up here in the next week.
Great, thank you.
All right, Mr. Glaser.
I just wanted to remind everybody and those that may never or not have heard of this, that the Waverly Chamber of Commerce is doing webisodes. It's called Common Grounds, Commerce Over Coffee, and it's on Tuesdays at 8 in the morning. And they do this on their Facebook page. On May 26th, which was last Tuesday, our very own Mayor Hoffman was, I think, the first person that they interviewed and had some conversations with. Tomorrow morning, if you can join, Jim Addy will be they'll be doing some conversations with him tomorrow at 8 a.m. And again, it's on their Facebook page. And I think maybe Mayor Hoffman can add, but I think it was a good webisode for the community to listen into.
Yeah, it was very impromptu. It was a one-take wonder. It was recorded. presented. So, but we did it under one take. So hopefully we'll have a lot more guests on there that can add to the conversation. But thank you for bringing that forward. So it's definitely something to follow. Let's see here, Ms. Rathe.
I want to echo what Matt said about the Heritage Days can and bottle drive. We're going to do it again this fall. It was very successful, so keep your eyes on their Facebook page for that announcement. I also wanted to thank the vegetation management staff and leisure services, public works, whoever helped get the cemetery ready for Memorial Day. It looked great. And if you haven't walked through the prairie that's by Southeast School, do it. They have done a great job with it. It used to be a jungle in there, and apparently they have burned it, and it looks really, really nice. So I would encourage everybody to get some exercise and walk down there. It's beautiful.
All right. Let's see here. We got Ms. Beaufore is next.
Thank you. So I have a couple things. First of all, I'll just let you know that the Waverly Era Veteran Post has a smoked pork chop dinner that will be served Thursday. It's to go only, curbside pickup, and they do want you to place your order early if you're going to eat there. So they have some really great food. It's going to be $8 for smoked pork chop, potato salad, beans, and cookie. So you do have to have your order in by Wednesday at 4 p.m. Also, the seniors had a great celebration, successful. I think there was a lot of good social distancing as well, but they did have a senior parade down 4th Avenue, and is a very successful. Parents and family in the community drove by and just celebrated the 2020 seniors, and it was really awesome. So I want to thank the community for that as well.
All right, Mr. Kangas, and then our guest.
I guess I just want to echo everyone as far as thanking the city for keeping that credit rating going. It's having been on here and done some numerous bond issues, it's amazed that the interest just keeps going down. That's unbelievable. Note that congratulations to the seniors, and it's nice to see the yard signs out. A lot of them have them out for their seniors, so that's nice to see, to recognize, and it might actually be a nice thing to kind of continue into the future as even when they have the opportunity to have a full graduation as it is. One of the things that's a bonus that come out is that the governor was allowing for high school baseball and softball to get started. They believe they were able to start practicing today. And so they are going to have at least a partial season. So kind of keep an eye on when those happens. I know they're going to try to keep some social distance at the parks and have people come with lawn chairs and stuff, so they're not just sitting in the stands, but can kind of ring the field that way. But that'd be a great way to show some support to those kids as well. I know the seniors, tracksters and soccer players didn't get a chance to finish their season that way, but the baseball and softball players are going to get a chance to have a senior season, so it'd be great to support them.
Thank you, Tim. And Tasha, round us out.
Yes, again, I just want to say thank you so much for having me be the City Council guest person this month. I want to just give a big thank you to Dr. Birgen, Brian, for your kind of reaching out when I first got here and getting me involved with Community Matters, specifically the Strategic Planning Committee that I was involved in. I think it was 2 summers ago already. I think Rodney talked about that. It's hard to believe I've been here for 2 years now. And I just want to, kind of not to end on a bad note, but just to be honest and real about the current times. As everyone knows, it's kind of the elephant in the room. But from that strategic planning committee, myself and Jean Shinkowitz started Embrace Celebrating Diversity. And I will just say that stemmed from one of 2 main initiatives from that strategic planning committee, being diversity and the need of childcare in our community. So we are continuing the conversations. We've done many book drives to celebrate diversity. We have hosted a first annual event, and obviously COVID kind of put a wrench in things, but we hope to continue those plans moving forward. And I guess I just ask from you city council members that you do something, have a voice, be involved, help the community members. I'm currently hosting 2 international students that have moved in with me for the summer. There's real fear. I have real fear for my son. There's cross-country runners who are afraid to run. It's real. And I just hope and pray that it's being addressed in a positive way, that we can unify the community and come together, because it's always been necessary, but even more so now today. And so I just appreciate your listening, and your voices are needed and much appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll see you in a couple weeks. For my comments, the only thing that I can say is I miss the Senior Center 501 Cafe. I hope that they can get that going again here in the near future when it's safe to do so. I know that's a highly susceptible population, but darn it, Kathy's Kitchen is darn good. So with that, one other thing that I had a person comment on was people, obviously most people have yards that abut next to the street at the curb. For the safety of pedestrians that walk in the street, ride bicycles in the street, and ride motorcycles in the street, please put your grass clippings into your yard, not out on the street. Not only is it dangerous under wet conditions for those people using the street, in that fact, it's also against the ordinance. So please be courteous. If you blow it in the street, blow it back up into your yard, please. With that, I'll seek a motion for adjournment.
I will move adjournment.
Second.
Motion by Birgen, second by Schneider. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say. Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.